Welcome to the live Q&A. Erin is here tonight. Erin is our clinical director for the Seeking Integrity Los Angeles Residential Treatment Program and oversees like everything. We've got so many things going on. We've got a virtual step down. It's a new program. So for alumni of our program that just need a little bit more, that's a new opportunity. And we're really excited about having that. We have one spot left for the Empowered Women's Retreat in August. And I can't believe that we still have one spot because like so many people would really benefit from it. So I think it's just partners struggling sometimes to step out of fear and into willingness to have the healing. So it will fill. I have no doubt about that, but we have one spot left. So but Erin, is part of the team and really oversees many of the aspects of that, along with our family specialist, Tamara. So busy, busy, busy. We've got lots of great things going on, and we're in the middle of summer, a slower time for us, so to speak. Ha, ha, ha. And I keep thinking, oh my goodness, and it'll be fall, and then everything ramps way back up again. So, but questions, please.
Summer break. And I'm like, wait, my kids go back to school in 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
It's wild. Time is flying.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I will say on the, Empowered Women's Retreat, a lot of women are also moms or primary caregivers of kiddos, and it's hard to get away. I know for myself, like I always have this dual guilt of needing desperately to do my own personal work to process through my own betrayal and my own stuff, and also like the guilt of leaving them behind to go and do that. And yet every time I go, I come back, I'm like, whoa, I reclaimed a part of myself that my kids actually needed, and I didn't even know that they needed it.
Or that it was missing. Like, we can be like thinking we're doing a great job, and we are on some level, but there's always this fracture or fragment that's is different. So yeah, I honor you because I know it's extra juggling, to make all of that work and attending. You're well cared for. We're really busy behind the scenes too, so it is different. So, but
definitely. And I think the kind of work we do there is very different than I think what a lot of people have experienced, because we're not just throwing a bunch of information at you. We are doing things. It's very experiential. It's like, okay, we could talk about anger, or we could actually get into how to release it and then do that work together. And or we could talk about boundaries, or we could actually get into scenarios where we don't know how to set them, and we can talk about childhood trauma, or we can do psychodrama to actually play it out with one another. And so it's work. A lot of these women were like, I had no idea this type of stuff was available out here. And then, but realizing how in a short period of time, it moved them so much further than some of the more talk-based or psychoeducation-based work that they had only tried, right? So it's a different compartment of work, where we're actually getting into kind of the mess together in our most vulnerable sense. And there's something very tribal about that. A bunch of women coming together and supporting each other in vulnerable places like that. And these women leave best buds, support each other for a long time after. And it's beautiful to kind of see how those relationships unfold, for sure.
can you, we are waiting for questions, but she and I talked earlier today, and Erin was on. We have a continuation for those that wish to do so online. And can you share generally enough, but how impactful the retreat, they did it in March, so it's been a few months, but like some of the positive things you're seeing, perhaps.
Well, so to reiterate what Tammy was just saying, we offer a year-long aftercare program. So if you come to the retreat, you can join a year-long container that is weekly So to say like this was a mountaintop experience, but how do I actually get the consolidation of gains of all those benefits and live them out in my life? So you stay in the same container, of women throughout the course of the year. And I was just like blown away because I subbed in for Tamara last night with the group of women that were there in March. And I was just like, I was so inspired. I was so inspired um by how they took, I literally, it was like, you guys took lemons and made lemonade. That again, none of us asked to do this work. We didn't ask for this trauma and this chaos and all this stuff, but you chose to jump into your own personal healing in it. And the beautiful things that have come out of that. I was just watching them one after another share these, it was just like, wow, you know, from seeing who they showed up to the retreat as terrified, angry, scared. I don't know what to do. I can't stop focusing on this. I don't know how to move forward. And to watch just kind of the beautiful blossoming transformation that's happening within each and every one of them was really inspiring. It brought me to tears. I just told them, I was like, y'all, I love you. Because it was really beautiful to see how when they chose to work on themselves, how it actually had a lot of positive byproducts in their relationship too. They went from like, I'm hyper focused on the relationship and I'm hyper focused on what he's doing and where he's going and how he's spending his time in his recovery, to like, I'm going to really focus on me. And I hope you do the right thing. I hope that you take accountability for yourself. But that when they kind of made that shift, that actually it caused a lot of positive shifts in their partner as well. Although they weren't doing it for that reason, it was a positive byproduct. So it was,
And I think that's the right word, the byproduct. But in the meantime, they're focusing on themselves and they're healing. And I say this to partners, like I hate when all the focus is on what he's doing and his behaviors and all that. Like you have no life because all your focus is on the addiction, and and there's no safety because you're always, I'm okay if he does okay, like
yeah.
you are never within yourself and creating that safety for yourself. You are dependent on somebody else, and it's addiction. It's a chronic condition.
Well, but with all due respect to trauma, getting stuck in that is actually the way trauma's designed. And so there's no shame if that's where you're at, because I remember at my own experience that given the kind of work I do, the amount of resources I have, the amount of knowledge I have, it didn't matter. My brain wanted to go to rumination on that thing and safety seeking and tracking him down and figuring it. Like I went there, and it took a lot of energy to move myself away from that. And I did it relatively quickly, but again, I think that we get stuck there because it's our subconscious that's basically saying, and all the shadow parts of us too that are just like, are you safe? Are you going to be stupid again? Are you going to let this happen again? If you don't control this, it's going to spiral out. If you don't do something, he's not going to do anything. If you don't, and that's normal. Like, to be honest, like that's such a normal response to this type of trauma. You have to do something really different to support yourself to get to a different healing track. And so this is one of the ways to do that. There's a lot of ways to do that, but and I address that sometimes on this webinar, but it's hard because I remember being in that place and being like, I'm so miserable. I'm so miserable. I don't like the way I feel. I don't like the way that I am thinking every day. I don't like the way that I feel. I don't like how I'm spending my time. I like all of that. And so I'm in a place now where I have joy back again, and I'm not that far post, this experience. And it's just because I've turned and forced my attention in other directions and really meeting my own needs for safety versus trying to claw it out of someone who may or may not be able to give it to me right now.
Yeah, and I think it's so important because we hear from so many people, I need to know everything, and then I can. And often that is like so contraindicated. Like In fact, the more gory details you know, the deeper the
That's
deeper
our
the
first
hole is that you're trying to get
question.
out. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, is it? Sorry, let me get into the
Literally,
questions.
look at the first line of the first question.
Oh, okay, there you go. All right. A great lead in. Should I tell my wife all the horrifying details? Discovery Day was about a year ago, and I am sober and in recovery since. My wife has said many times that no matter what, she wants to know the truth of what happened, and I have vowed to answer all her questions honestly. Every time I share details, it's difficult on her and me, and she stumbles back into a place of great pain, full of anger, sadness, and grief. Fully knowing the details can burn traumatizing images into her head, absolutely, that don't ever come back out. So I'm sorry. My wife says that she wants to know because it's her right to have all the vital information that I've hidden from her, and because it helps her make sense of what happened so she can move on with her recovery. I am torn on what is best for us. On the one hand, I want to follow the advice of professionals. On the other hand, I want to do what my wife is asking and believe that we are carving our own path to heal. What should we do for a pro-relational recovery? This one's really traumatizing. Like, like how many years of training have you had, Erin, to do this work? Like, and like this is like if I have cancer and I'm going like, yeah, I know the cancer specialist goes, so you should do all of these things, and this will give us the best result. But I'm gonna go do the homeopathic. I'm gonna go take magnesium, and I'm gonna work on it myself. So I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound snarky, but I'm hearing so much dysregulation for your poor partner. You guys are doing a DIY drip discovery, and so everybody's on their own path. You choose your own path. I completely honor that, and the pain I feel, for this. So I'm going to shut up. Your thoughts, but because you are a
No,
professional, so
I'm not Tammy, so are you. Um, yeah, so I want to validate in you that you're like, I'm caught in a rock and a hard place because my wife's telling me what she needs to heal and what her right is and what we need to move forward. And then I have like professionals over here telling me like, don't do that, right? I would say that you want to lean on the professionals. And the reason is, like I just said, in the very beginning stages, I remembered being like, I need to know everything because trauma wants to make sense of because your reality is really distorted at that point. Well, what holidays were not real? We want to go into categorizing and figuring it out. But what I found is every time I got a new piece of information, now I had an image I couldn't burn out of my mind that would pop up to ruin the best moments. Then I would be like, I'm really dysregulated. And all I needed was safety, but safety did not come from more information. And I'm just saying that because I'm telling you I have experienced it. So what we as professionals are trying to say is that there is a right to knowledge, okay? In terms of the overarching picture. Yes, she deserves to know how she's been betrayed. In terms of going into gory details, it is harmful. And I think there's even a part of her that might be really wanting you to stand up and say, I'm not doing that because it's going to hurt you. I have been willing to be as honest and open and rigorously honest as I can and moving forward, like we've defined what that is. But to go back and rip these things up when I personally see in front of my eyes, it hurts you. I'm not willing to do that, especially when our professionals in our life are telling us this is not healthy, this is not helpful. Because what I find is that it brings all the trauma back to day one. And then you could have a really joyful day because you've been in recovery a year, right? You're now having really great days, maybe, or maybe even starting to reconnect. And maybe this brings trauma back to day one as if you haven't been sober for a year. Let's start over again. Okay. So now she has to process through, I feel dysregulated. I don't feel safe. I'm mad at you again. How could you do this to me? And now she doesn't even trust the good moments that your recovery is producing. And you're like, I'm really working at this, right? So I would say if any of these details lead back to she needs this knowledge for her own health, okay. She needs this knowledge for her own personal safety. And I don't mean emotional safety. I mean, like, someone's going to come to your house, someone's trying to take down your career, someone like that type of thing that would require like legal or medical, I understand, but you've already done discovery. I don't know if you've gone through full therapeutic disclosure. So you didn't say that here, but what I would say is get with professionals and say, them getting to know the two of you, know what she doesn't know what she does know. They can say, hey, you know what? There are some really relevant pieces in here. Let's go through a full therapeutic disclosure process that really prepares her heart, prepares your heart, prepares your memory, prepares the facts, the details that are appropriate for this scenario. And let's sit down and do that together in a therapeutic environment, right? But carving your own path to heal, I'm okay with people like, figuring out which works best for each couple. But what you're saying is like, what I'm witnessing is that this doesn't work for us, and it's hurtful and it's harmful. So I would say get with some professionals and look at, do we need a full therapeutic disclosure? Or are we at this point rehashing the past as a means to create false safety that actually dysregulates and causes havoc in our relationship? Because at some point you do have to look towards the future. You do have to turn and say, what are we doing today? What does recovery look like today? What does our connection look like today? What does repairing look like today? Going back, even when new behaviors are not happening, just rips that Band-Aid off over and over and over again. And it's hard. So I hope that was helpful. And I think you have the right idea. I think you get it because you described in detail why it's not helpful.
Well, and I was thinking like a good formal therapeutic disclosure is not every line item details.
Right.
But you'll see the patterns. And right now, you're just getting this, pockets of information that is turbulent, for both and each of you. And again, I always say, like, just doing a disclosure I call them vomit disclosures, because she's getting vomited on. I use he and she is getting vomited on without the safety of a professional, and the stench is left, and there's nowhere to go with this. Like, I've got to clean this whole mess up, and sometimes addicts will go, well, I feel better because I told her the truth. She wanted to know the truth, and so again, everybody chooses their path, no judgment, but we sure want people to have the best help and the best opportunity to heal their relationships. I probably one of the web podcasts that I refer to the most often is Dr. Rob and Dr. Stan Tekin from January of 2019, called We Do in a Healthy Relationship. This is, it's so that's the goal is, well, I guess to me, what is your goal? If your goal is to heal the relationship and move forward towards each other, then creating those fractures regularly, just keep setting you back and keeping you away. How can she trust when there's all this stuff going on? So it sounds very painful. So, okay, Erin, the next one. I've been married for 35 years and just found out about my husband's porn addiction. He admitted to me that he has looked at porn every day for 8 years. I believe this has been going on our whole marriage. You're probably right. He was completely down the rabbit hole. He's in a 45-day treatment facility. I have heard no truth. I am stuck. I can't go forward without a whole truth, but I cannot and will not go back depending on the kind of porn he was been into. Violence to women, homosexual, or child porn. What should I do?
So not hearing whole truth. So what I will say about our residential treatment facility is we do not do disclosure while the client is in treatment. So there is a process called full therapeutic disclosure, which we just mentioned in the previous question. That is typically done by a CSAT, certified sex addiction therapist. There is a process for the partner to get really prepared for that, to have questions they would like answered, to have, preparing their heart, understanding what happens, like really a lot of consent and planning around that. The addict is going through the years of their life with a detective on the case, right? They have a CSAT that's really helping them to excavate rigorous honesty and be able to list out what needs to be disclosed. What is the whole truth? So I will just say that I know for us, we don't do disclosure and treatment because we can't do an honest, full therapeutic disclosure in treatment. And we believe in that process. So we refer clients after treatment. Also, our client does have to fully trust us to just spill all the beans and really like be open and honest without having like, we're going to go and tell your partner all of these things. Sans a few issues, right? There are things that if they had legal impact, if they have medical or health impact, like we are going to do immediate disclosures around those things, and we talk about what those are. So if your husband is currently in treatment, you may not have the whole truth because they don't do disclosure. And I don't know, you may want to ask about that and ask if they have someone that's there to support you, like maybe being able to talk to them about what the process looks like. But certainly one way to get the truth is to set up with CSATs a full therapeutic disclosure once he's out of treatment. Because yeah, I do think that what your questions are very fair. You're wanting to know, you know, there's certain things I could get over and there's certain things I don't think I can. And I do need to kind of know those things in order for me to be able to say, I'm going to move forward and we're going to stay together, or we're going to work on this and repair this. Certainly understanding, violence to women, child pornography, etc. So that would be my recommendation. I do agree. There is a level of, I do have to have consent in the relationship to move forward. And therefore I do have to know what my reality has been and who are you? Person I've been married to that's been lying to me for 35 plus years. I need to know what's going on in order to have consent to agree to move forward in the relationship.
So, and I know this is the case, Erin, for some of the guys that come to our program where their spouses perceive that it was all online acting out. And then there's one of the disclosure things, and please clarify if I'm wrong, but the client, not the therapist, are reaching out like, we STD test all of our clients. And so if there is a positive result, that's a health issue that needs to be told to the partner. And so even if you believe that it was all online, part of healthy boundaries is your physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual. Those are healthy things for you, and hopefully their family specialist is helping you with those issues. But physical is like, take care of your health, get an STD test. Maybe it was all online, still a betrayal, but just for your own safety, so you can hopefully sleep a little better, get that checked out for yourself. So I say that to every partner, just go get an STD test. I have no ownership in any STD test programs. So how do you decide, this is another one. How do you decide what is necessary to disclose and what should be processed with a therapist or other support?
Oh, okay. So one guideline is actions and behaviors. Okay. What is in your mind? So especially, we always say, even like post-disclosure, we talk about honesty. I tell my guys, once they've left treatment, they're doing disclosure, all this, like that if it is in your mind, going and telling your partner every time you have a triggering thought or a fantasy or is not the way to go. You want to disclose, actions and behaviors. So I would say, and again, I want to make sure that you're doing this in a therapeutic environment, that this isn't just like on your own. But yeah, you want to give a full picture of what your acting out life looked like, what the betrayal included, right? So we sometimes will, some guys can't remember exact numbers, which is a real thing, because when you're in addiction, your frontal lobe is legit offline, and some of this is years and years, right? So a range, right? In some cases, other times it's, this happened 4 times. This was the behavior. This is how it happened, right? Going into, this is what that person looked like. This is the, that, like all of that. When you get into details that are painting a descriptive picture of an act, painting a descriptive, of a person, you've gone too far. And some CSATs will allow for some level of description because for some reason something matters there. I personally stay away from descriptive details because you're literally, now I'm injecting a traumatic image into your mind. But They do need to know about your behavior. What did you do? How many hours were you spending on an average week watching porn? How many massage parlors did you go to? Um, you know, and in the full therapeutic disclosure process, partners are allowed to present a list of questions prior to the disclosure so that you're seeking to address some of those questions if it's therapeutically appropriate to address certain questions, right? Because every partner has something that, like, our wedding day, was that a part of the, like, some people have questions that are very meaningful to them about certain and specific events and dates, etc. Or those times when, like, my spidey senses were going off and I just need confirmation that I wasn't crazy, right? But when you're getting into painting a descriptive picture of something, down to, you know yeah, you get what I'm saying. We don't want to go there. But again, allow professionals to guide this. If this is post disclosure and you're talking about what's honest, I would say actions and behaviors, things you lied about, sure. But I do not recommend the thing you want to call a sponsor about, the thing you want to call your therapist or your recovery buddy about is like, man, I was triggered today at the beach because this, particular person walked by. I used the 3-second rule. I bounced my eyes to something else. I found myself going back there with a little bit of fantasy today. I called someone, I did something about it. So that type of thing, you're gonna want, you don't want to like any one of us. I don't care what is going on with you. If I had to be rigorously honest about every thought in my head, I'd be locked up in an insane asylum somewhere just because we're humans and that's our brain is going to come up with all kinds of things. Our subconscious sometimes just will like expel things. So yeah, if your main issue is I sit in fantasy for hours and hours at a time, right? Then you're not necessarily sharing the contents of those fantasies when like you're just saying, I have found myself off track. I have found myself in middle circle behaviors. I didn't call my sponsor right away. Like, so do you see how that's behavioral? This was happening. I didn't do this thing. I lied to you about it. I need to be honest. It's not every little, some partners are like, I want to know, what did you think about today? Did you see anybody that was attractive? Did you, that just, it takes you down this path that you can't get back from.
Well, and I hear from partners, it's like, I've had some that have gone, like, they hate, and I will say hate, certain ethnicities because that was what their partner was. And I was like, these are women of a certain culture, and now we're hating them because he chose really poorly, and like the negative emotions, the toxicity within the partner, and triggered every time they are thinking or seeing anybody on television or out in the world, so yes, having it, be filtered from that standpoint. But I was like, yeah, like if you did a formal therapeutic disclosure, there's a process about, like, if this is something that was, that was missed and not intentionally, I left it off. We've heard that story before many times. But yeah, like if there was something that was remembered, what did your qualified professionals, what was the plan, so that, if it's this, then I can share it, we can share it. But if it gets to this level, we want to have our qualified professionals, come back. Like, there's a plan. That's why working with professionals makes such a difference, because you have, you don't have to figure this out on your own. I get calls all the time, and I don't know anybody that has said, yes, from elementary school, I was prepared for, my partner's betrayal, and so I know exactly what to do. Or, yeah, I mean, like, that doesn't happen. Nobody knows about this stuff, until they have to. So you're here, and I'm grateful you're here. We really, really try hard to have good resources and, and information that's relevant for a healing journey for each and both of you. So, okay, I have a question about my SAPA husband reintegrating masturbation back into his life, in a healthy way. I personally do not see masturbation as shameful, but I have concerns about him reintegrating it without my participation or mutual masturbation. Initially, after D-Day, I was very triggered by it, but no longer have those issues. I worry more about it being a slippery slope when he's used it as a coping or disconnect in the past. Is there a healthy way or certain time frame for doing it again?
Yeah. So yeah, the thing with sex and porn addiction is not everyone's inner circle is going to look the same, and that inner circles actually can change over time. Okay. So is it something that we recommend right out the gate before you have strong recovery, before you have good, strong intimacy and boundaries and reconnection with your partner? No. But we're not, masturbation is bad. It's, we get the clients that this is the coping skill they have developed to self-soothe. What do I do when I'm stressed, when I'm upset, when I can't regulate myself, when I'm numb, when I like all of the, it's the solution to all kinds of things, right? So yeah, we've had alumni that have successfully reintegrated masturbation at some point in their recovery journey. One guy recently, he had 3 years sober. He had a strong program, lots of and good healing in the relationship too. And this was done. We always say, if you're going to change anything about your circles, it's done in consultation. It's done in consultation with your partner. It's done in consultation with your CSAT. It's done in consultation with your sponsor. You're not doing this as a, well, I decided that, that right there is a sign it's not good. So I would say there's a couple things. To some degree, all things can be done. Yeah, like you said, maybe right now you're saying, I might be comfortable with that because I don't have a problem with masturbation. But where I stand right now is this is where I'd like to start. I would like for us to either A, mutually masturbate, or that because Dr. Rob has talked about this many times, masturbation without intimacy is just self-stimulation, right? And so that there is a way to incorporate masturbation in, maybe maybe you're holding him, maybe you're, rubbing his back, maybe whatever it is, that there's ways to incorporate this as a couples activity. There's also ways that if we get down the line and you feel in consultation, this decision's been made with sound structure, boundaries around it, that this is not, I'm not masturbating to fantasy in my mind. My eyes are open. Like there's different ways that we've experienced this happening in a successful way. And there have been ways that we have seen this, yes, be the slippery slope that drags people back in. So I think you just have to be really clear and open about what's the purpose, right? Am I just seeking to have like an intimate experience with myself? If I'm honest with myself, am I trying to self-soothe? Am I able to masturbate without porn or fantasy? Because fantasy over time stimulates regrooving the exact same neural networks that porn did. So you have to be able, am I able to even do that? So there's risk factors involved. I will say that. But healthy sexuality is the goal. We don't want to remove sexuality from somebody's life, right? And we have single guys that choose to be single for a while. And would we say that you can never masturbate again when maybe masturbation wasn't even part of their acting out? They solely went and saw escorts, or there's a lot of factors to consider here. It's not off the table, but I would say do it in consultation, set up good structure and boundaries, and really transparent with you.
Yeah, and we've even talked about bookends where you call your sponsor before or talks to you before, and then talks after. So there's a making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. So lots of factors, and and having a support. Like if it goes badly and I start tripping into fantasy, what is my plan so that I go back to my outer circle rather than slide into inner circle problematic behavior? So a lot of it is transparency, having a plan, what is the goal, all of those things. So, but I also hear you going, I'm a little concerned, and would, like you'd rather try mutual masturbation. Well, so have the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Will a sex addict be able to heal and or remain in recovery without acknowledging to their very close friends and family their lies and misrepresentations that they have shared with their spouse in an attempt to hide the problems caused by addiction? Example, sex addict tells parents spouse is controlling, jealous without disclosing their cheating betrayal.
Well, so there's a few layers here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One is that it's not always appropriate to go and talk about your sex life with your parents. It's not always appropriate it's never appropriate to go and talk about your sex life with your children. I don't care if they're adults or not. So the nature of this addiction is more private than some others because some people, it's highly stigmatized. Many people don't have education about this, don't understand it. They will conflate it with offending. There's a lot of misunderstanding in society around compulsive sexual behavior. Okay. So that's one. Is it okay for him, though, to blame the marital problems on my wife is controlling and jealous? No. So there is a way for someone to take accountability for their role in issues without having to disclose all the gory details underneath it. Because in a lot of circumstances, it's not appropriate to do that. But you could say, yeah, Tammy and I are struggling, and I'm really working on ways that I can be a more supportive husband and partner to her, and it's caused a lot of issues between us, but I'm starting to see my role in that and how I can do better. That's taking accountability and not throwing you under the bus, right? Because I understand if he's like, I don't want to go tell my parents that I've have a porn and masturbation problem or whatever, but to go to them and say my wife is controlling and jealous, like that's gaslighting, that's abusive, that's not fair either. So what I'm hearing is, can they heal without telling all of the stuff? Yes, they can. Are they healing though when they're going and they're calling you names and throwing you under the bus? That to me is like, there's a piece of your recovery that is not on solid ground here, because you would be looking at your side of the street, right? In recovery, we're looking at our side of the street. What do I need to own? What parts are mine? I'm not focusing on the actions and behaviors of somebody else. So this is kind of a two-part question, both yes and no. Yeah.
And I'm a massive 12 stepper. I highly value the 12 steps. Steps 4 through 9 are housekeeping. That's where we make a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And then, we make a list of people that we need to make amends to. And it isn't just saying, oh, sorry, oh, sorry. But we do that. And that's how we really, clean up a lot of the wreckage in our lives. And I will caution, a little cautionary tale here of, you know, I hear this often, that his parents will blame you. This didn't happen to him in a vacuum. Like there's I'm sure plenty of stuff in his family of origin stuff. And if he goes, like let's say he goes because it feels like you want him to go say, I'm a betrayer and a cheater and I've done all these things, they will likely still go, well, that's because your wife is like, you married poorly. So I hear too often how stuff has gotten back to family and there wasn't family support. So for you, I do this all the time. What are you doing to take care of you so that you've got safety around you? If they are not safe people to be around, don't be around them. Like, and whatever he's saying or not saying, he's been lying to himself, for years or decades, and lying to them too. So that's going to take a long time. If he's working on a real recovery program, he will shift and he will start, cleaning up, those pathways. But that isn't early recovery stuff. That takes time. That takes us to be able to own all of those things. So I would invite you, if you didn't join the Betrayed Partner work group that started last night, I've added 2 people to that already today. That's a healthy boundaries. It's communication. It's like really good stuff. And that would be an opportunity. Email me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com. We have a few spots left. If you'd like to join that 6 weeks, once a week, 90 minutes. Angela Spearman does a great job of facilitating that, live facilitated. This is not just watch a video, get better stuff. So consider that. And we've got 1 spot left. I mentioned it earlier for the Empowered Women's Retreat. We don't talk about him. We're working on helping you. So, and all of that outside family stuff, all that stuff is out there. But going and telling everybody, I can't tell you how many stories I've heard about. And then you're ostracized by people that used to be friends because they don't know what to do with it. It's so awkward and all those things. So it's really who is absolutely safe for each of you to be able to work with. And you know, the more he gets into recovery, you know, you'll be able to discern those things. And the more you get, you know, your tribe of people, you know, Erin mentioned before, tribe, getting a tribe of people that are supporting you, you'll have safe people to talk to too. Is it fair? No, but man, oh man, I like the family of origin stuff. There's usually plenty of dysfunction to go around in that too. Okay, I found out my husband has been in a slow burn but escalating relapse for the past 4+ years, triggered by a lot of pandemic trauma. His relapse followed 4 years of sobriety and 7 years of recovery and therapy work. In hindsight, it's clear now when he started to walk back his recovery work and when his sobriety broke. But how do I recommit myself to focusing on myself when my nervous system has gotten a very clear message that when I focused on myself in the last 4 years, my husband felt both abandoned and not held accountable to engaging in daily recovery practices? Wow.
Well, so I think here's the thing. You could have been very all over this and it still could have happened. There's so many stories about how addicts can be really good at when they do it, how they do it. You know, I think that what you're saying is, so when I focus on myself, I abandon him. That's not true. In fact, you know, I think that focusing on myself allows me to feel safe enough to connect to him. Like that, those are where my boundaries are. Boundaries are not to keep me away from him. My work is not to keep me from, you know, like holding the torch. It's like it actually allows me to know when I feel safe and when I don't feel safe. It allows me to have open and honest conversations with him that are not like, you know, drenched in anger. It allows me to have moments where I can. Here's the thing. I've just seen this a lot lately. If they're not going to take accountability for doing it on their own, they were not going to do it with you watching them every move. I promise you that. And so I think there's a little bit of like there's guilt, but there's also fear in there. So obviously I don't want you to abandon your relationship. I don't think that self-work does that in a relationship. I think it can bring you closer, it can make you stronger, you're reconnecting. And I also think don't blame yourself that because you engaged in work, he felt abandoned and he chose not to take accountability for himself. His accountability partners are other men in the program. They're sponsors, they are friends, they are men that are doing the same work. That's their accountability partner. I don't want to be an accountability partner. I want to be a partner. I want to be someone that grows and builds trust over time and that has fun memories and that re-engages in, you know, all the things we used to love to do. Like, so I would say, do not blame yourself, which I feel that you're doing this a little bit here is saying that I turned my back on him because I let go and did work on myself. No, this, I promise you, it would have happened and maybe even sooner with this happening. I'm going to watch you, I'm going to surveil you, or I'm going to be sure and I'm going to hold you accountable and I'm going to hold your hand through every step of the way. Like there's a part of them that really, especially avoidantly attached men within meshed mothers, they actually can't and won't get sober forever when somebody is mimicking mom, because it's what creates the pathway to entitlement, resentment, justification to act out. So all I'm saying is that you didn't cause this. You did not cause this. Whether you were there every step of the way or not, it would have happened. He has to be the one that is self-motivating and engaged in a community of men that hold him accountable. It's not your role. And in fact, it doesn't work long term. So I feel for you because it's incredibly painful. And I think your central nervous system is saying like, I'm devastated and I don't feel safe again. And I think sometimes we go to this, will you let your guard down? I think there's protector parts within us that say, well, you let your guard down, you let this happen. And that's not true. That's an old story oftentimes, when really you were protecting yourself and taking care of yourself, which is where your energy should have been. So I think you did an amazing job. And I'm sorry that he wasn't able to hold himself accountable. He's a grown man. That's his job. It's his job. Just like it was your job to take care of you, you know?
So the pandemic was, I struggled. And you know what I did? I leaned into the exact same things that I learned early in my recovery. I have no control over any of these things. But I had a good therapist who said, you do have some choices, because I felt like all my choices have been taken away. Everything, drama queen. And she reminded me that I do have choices. There's fewer, and to be super intentional. And I cut out all the negative noise. Like I still don't watch the news, and I don't miss it. Like I had to be super intentional about, what I chose. Abandonment wound, guess what? I have a massive one, but guess what? I can say, I'm feeling like you're really distant. I'd like to take responsibility for connecting. It's not your job to go, oh, are you feeling abandoned? No, it's my job if I'm feeling abandoned to go, oh, there's my abandonment wound getting poked. And I'm going to choose to engage in a way that's healthy for me, whether it's with you or my friends or whatever it is. I have options for that. And the last thing I'll say on this is Dr. Eddie Caparucci and his wife, Terry, are co-authoring a new book on inner child for betrayed partners. And I finished reading the drafts of the chapters that I have so far over the weekend. And I was like, I have a dozen people I want to send this piece to right now. The safety seeking. It's like, I was like, this is what I hear all the time. Like if I bubble wrap him enough, then we're going to be okay. And that's a fallacy, but it ties back to all of this other stuff. So, so understanding what's going on for you, but he, like Erin said, he's an adult. He had choices. Every addict, once we have recovery, we don't, when we're using it as a maladaptive coping mechanism, because we don't know how to do life. But once we have recovery, we have tools to use, and we can choose on a daily basis whether we lean into those or we throw them on the ground and we walk the other way back to our addiction. So I hope he's doubling down on his recovery work and he really gets it. We have a residential treatment program, and we've had guys like this who have been in and out and kind of looped around, but never really got to those core issues. Like that might be a really good next step for him to, get a solid foundation under him. We have an amazing family specialist that supports partners. Like, it's really good. It's life-changing for guys that choose it. So just some options. Okay, Erin, the next one goes back to the first question. So about the disclosure and telling all the gory details. So we have been through therapeutic disclosure many months ago, yet have to do the other two pieces. And I'm kind of like, that feels like a really huge gap, but why is there so much gory details that are like, I don't know. So thoughts on that? Like, because if things were really left off the formal therapeutic disclosure, there should be a process as part of
maybe it's
with your therapist.
Have yet to do other two pieces, meaning like maybe
The impact letter and the letter of restitution. Those would be the other two pieces. So
right. But many months seems like a long time.
I know.
Usually these things kind of go like this. But anyways, I still hold to what I said before about the gory details. So I appreciate that you're saying that you did do disclosure, because maybe she's saying it wasn't good enough because I need to know all the gory details, and maybe that's part of her impact letter and that's why it's coming up now. I don't know. But I think let your professionals lead you guys. If she's like, I don't want to see these professionals anymore because I don't like what they're saying, like,
everybody gets to choose.
Yeah.
So okay. So, and here's one. What do you say to women who don't have the experience that you do with disclosure information, to the women who actually have healed with additional piece of information? Not all professionals agree here, and that is extremely important to point out. I think it's important to consider how far along she is in her own recovery now.
Yeah, so you're right. In fact, it's funny because CSATs are all trained the exact same way to do disclosure, and yet there are many, many, many variations of how people actually choose to do it in the world. So yeah, I think that it depends. So like I said, when I was saying there's a why underneath, right? So I would say it's just so that I know, right? And what he's saying is that when she finds out the answer to that descriptive question, then she's dysregulated, angry, and like nothing's changed. So I do think that there are, yes, there are certain pieces that are critical to know. There are like like I said, there were questions like, well, I had this moment where my intuition was going off on this day. I want to know about that day. Did something happen on that day? Like for my own need to say I'm not crazy and I can trust my intuition. Or so all I'm saying is that in the scenario that he presented to us, which is that disclosure had happened, or maybe it hadn't happened, or was this the same one that you?
Yes, the
Okay,
disclosure has happened, and she's asking all the
yeah.
questions, and she's very dysregulated, and angry, and right back to square one.
Yeah. So
So,
what I'm saying is essentially that there are pieces of this where what he is describing is she'll ask him a question. I need to know this. This is my right to know this. He gives her the answer. They fall back apart. She does not do well. This does not help her heal. This makes her anxious, upset, angry, dysregulated, right? So I'm going off of kind of the scenario that he gave us. I am not saying that there is not valued reasons why certain information is potentially required. I'm just saying lean on the professionals that know you guys, that know the situation. And if you feel like your values are not in alignment with the professionals, then that's a choice to be able to say, I want to go with professionals that are like, no, get all down into the gory details. I will just say from my own experience working with people for many, many years, the descriptive details that only apply imagery and color to an act only hurt. They did not help heal. But I think there are women out there that would say that, hey, when I got the answers to what happened on that day and this day and these memories and how many and what, like once I knew I had it all, I was able to move on, right? But for some, it's never enough. Does that make sense? So there's some that get stuck in the cycle because I continue to try to dig up new details because my central nervous system doesn't feel I need to know more to heal. And that's not true. We've had couples that just decide not to do disclosure at all. And depending on where everyone is in their recovery, etc. So I appreciate the question because yes, absolutely. I think that there's many answers to this question based on what professionals that you ask. But I will say that in the scenario that we were reading, the way he described the situation was like, I don't know how healthy this is for the ongoing process here.
okay. I originally thought my husband was a PA, but found out it did escalate into hundreds of in-person interactions. I'm angry at everyone. I'm also angry at other betrayed partners who have a PA husbands. Behaviors haven't changed, but this feels so much worse than when I thought it was only PA. They don't understand like other SAB betrayed partners do. But how do I direct my anger away from people who don't deserve it? Thank you for asking this. And like we see this often, so I really appreciate that you're coming here, and I hear and feel your pain with this.
Yeah, definitely. And I can understand too. It's like people that go to the grief group and it's like, I literally had this experience recently where like the person in the grief group was upset because they're like comparing my grief to their grief. Your child, died after living a long life. My child died at 3, and they want to hate all the people that didn't have children that lived to be long. And it's part of the grief that is anger, right? And it's going to be misdirected all over the place when it's still inside of you and you don't have an outlet for it that feels healthy. And like one of the ways that we do it at our retreat is it's actually releasing anger from the central nervous system in a way that gets it out of you. And I think it is too. It's how do I get to this place? Like you're still in, you know, shock phase, anger phase, that phase of like, I don't know what is up or down. I don't know how, like this does get better over time if you do something with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does self-care look like? What does boundaries look like? I I think betrayal is betrayal. In other words, oftentimes we want to compare the details, but pain is pain. And somebody in your exact boat may experience less pain than you or more pain than you, even with the exact scenario, right? So we can't compare really what our pain feels like to somebody who, because maybe, porn for you may not have been as big a deal to somebody else, maybe whose value system was like violently against it. Like that feels the same. And I've had partners who had more issues with the porn than they did with the affairs. I had people that had more issues with the affairs than they like. So everybody's different in terms of how they interpret pain, because we all have a blueprint inside of us based on our own childhood, our own upbringing that like creates like what is going to hurt, what is going to feel the most invasive, what is going to like, what's the betrayal of the relationship that we had, the contract we had in our relationship. So I understand. And I think right now, you're still in that phase where it's just, I hate everyone right now. I'm mad at me. I'm mad at you. I'm mad at the person who looks at me the wrong way. Like it's a lot. And I think that partially what that's saying is that anger needs a place to go. One way I've like worked through some of that is like rage writing. I like will like write hateful, angry letters. Like they don't go to anybody, but I'm getting it, I'm expressing it. Instead of like being like, God, I wish this anger went away. I give the anger a voice in something creative or something athletic or something like to work and process it out of my central nervous system. Because obviously sometimes when we don't do that, it comes out sideways at the wrong person, right? Or the person that really didn't deserve it. Like, who am I to judge how someone should or shouldn't feel about their pain? But I feel you. I've been in that place before where, you want to say, well, you have it better than I do. But ultimately, at the end of the day, even if they had it as bad as you did, it doesn't make the pain feel any better, right? And the pain to them feels pretty painful. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is really challenging. And I hope you can start under, it's not understanding, it's the feel. I hope you can start feeling that other women who are betrayed partners are, we keep using the word tribe, are in the tribe with you and there to support you. And not right now, but at some point you'll be able to support them too. But like, yeah, I feel like you just got hit by the Mack truck and just really need the support. So absorb support and yeah, and vent the anger. Like drive somewhere in your car where it's private so you won't get arrested. But but yell. I mean, whatever you need to do, to release that because it's toxic within you too. And so hanging on to that, is hurtful for you. Okay, you got time for
Yeah.
two more? Okay, let's do it. My partner has been visiting sex on the premise venues more and more regularly over 24 years. During lockdown, he started going to Beats. Now in recovery, he congratulates himself because he hasn't been to a venue in 18 months, but he's been to Beats about 6 times that period, only acting out once. The last cruise a month ago. He also has a few slips of porn and staggered disclosure about these things. I don't feel safe and I'm not impressed by the no venues record. Is this ungenerous? He's an active addiction. Sorry.
No, that's not ungenerous. It, I don't know. I don't know if he's kind of trying to go like the harm reduction route, like being like, look, I decreased what I was doing and I lowered the amount of things that I have been doing, but aren't you proud of me? Like, no, that's not ungenerous. I would not feel safe and I would not feel impressed. That is not a track record that says I am really working. The last cruise a month ago, only acting out once. He only had a few slips of porn and staggered disclosure about these things. I don't know, man. Yeah, what I hear here is I am not in recovery. I'm trying to kind of like manage this. And look, I'm like white knuckling it to get some things better, but I would not feel safe either. And so you can find a lot of information on our website about what real recovery looks like. He needs to probably have a lot more support in his corner to be able to kind of arrest these things and help you heal, because this would not make anyone feel safe.
I agree. I'm going to put a link into our residential treatment, but I'll read the next question. The last question first. My husband is currently trying to recover from a porn addiction. We are currently separated as I'm still trying to work through this and see if he can overcome it. Is it advised to continue having sex, or should we be abstaining?
So it kind of depends. I mean, obviously you guys are separated. Um, I think that there's a lot of like, I would ask a lot more questions here. So that's why I would say kind of refer back to your professionals that know you. But what I would say is that when you've established good recovery, when there is some trust and safety back in the relationship, when you have established like some emotional intimacy back, right? Where you could actually, you feel like you both could share when something is not right, because that's the thing sometimes with re-engaging in sex is that uh intrusive thoughts and stuff can come up for the betrayed partner, and you have to feel safe to share what's going on, or safe to say no at the last minute, or this is what I need versus this is what I need. So I think there's a lot of questions I would ask here, but what I would say is that you take take your time. There's no rush. We see a lot of injury happen with having, and I don't mean physical, but like a lot of issues come up when sex is reintroduced really quickly, because the pain is not resolved, and we're using sex as a way to either get confirmation or reassurance in the relationship, or maybe we can heal it this way, or we're skipping over the emotional intimacy building and we're going straight to physical intimacy because that's how we felt close to each other. um, and it can kind of like build on the unsafeness that you're experiencing. So I would say take your time and go in order, right? Like in terms of like trust, emotional connection, and intimacy, being able to spend time together and have open conversations, and that recovery is established, right? Um, and I don't put a time frame on that because it's different for everybody, right? So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't hear what his action plan is, because if it's just stopping, that's merely abstinent. The acting out is a maladaptive coping mechanism. So unless and until he has help to not just stop the problematic behaviors, but really address the underlying issues, I, you, you know, you use the word overcome it, and like, I'm an addict in active recovery. I will never promise somebody that I won't ever act out again. It's been decades. Still not going to do it. Today, I'm doing what I need to do to take care of myself, and I don't hear the action plan. What what is the plan for your separation? If it's just your separate, that doesn't help. Like, are you looking for in order for you to build trust? What actionable things does he need to do? I put a link. We have a porn addiction 101 work group. We have drop-in groups for each of you. We have a betrayed partner work group that started yesterday. You can still join that. Like, those would be actionable things that will help you get a foundation. But if it's just, he's stopping the porn, what we hear all the time now, he's using, TikTok, or he's gaming, or he's whatever. It just switches to another form of problematic behavior because we lack the coping skills in order to be able to do life. There's a reason why we're doing that stuff, because we aren't okay with ourselves. And so this is a numb out, escape. Porn never disappoints me. I don't have, whatever. Our life wasn't safe usually before age 10. So we found this nice little way of, going to la la land that takes us away from life, but it doesn't keep us connected to our partners in a real way. Dr. Rob always says, do you want to have sex with somebody you don't trust? You're separated right now. I don't think you trust them. So, what is it? What are the action steps he needs to do in order to build trust with you? And trust is rebuilt over time. So, him sharing his plan, you guys working with qualified professionals, each of you, because the therapy is very different for each of you, then you'll get a plan. Like, have a plan, because, like, otherwise it's just like, we're separated and should we get back together? Like, and that's painful because then you're together and then he acts out and then he's separated. So getting a plan with qualified professionals really can make a difference. So, but lots of resources. Email me, TAMI@Seeking Integrity. I have a whole list of resources I can send to people that you can just click. Here's podcasts, here's webinars. So happy to help. So thanks, Erin. Thanks, everybody. Great questions. We're here for healing and hope. So
Have a great rest of your night, everyone.
bye.